It all began on a cold morning in the trenches of the Western Front. A young soldier, with a trimmed mustache and a lost look, was writing a letter amid the mud and fire. His name was Adolf Hitler, and his life was about to change forever. Hitler was not a leader yet. He was a messenger. His job was to run between trenches under enemy fire, carrying orders that could mean life or death. Each run was a deadly game, each step a challenge to fate. Before the war, Hitler was a lost young man in Vienna. He dreamed of becoming an artist, but the Academy of Fine Arts rejected his paintings. Frustrated and aimless, he survived by selling cheap postcards. In 1913, he fled to Munich to avoid military service in Austria. He did not want to fight for an empire he did not believe in. However, when Germany declared war in 1914, Hitler volunteered. It was a chance to belong to something greater. War was not glory. It was mud, hunger, and terror. Hitler served in the Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment. At first, he stood out for his bravery. He was cold, determined, almost indifferent to the danger that devoured his comrades. Young Adolf earned an Iron Cross, a rare decoration for someone of his rank. His captain would later recall that Hitler never sought shelter. He was always in the most dangerous place. For him, war became home, his new identity. Life in the trenches was brutal. Endless rains turned the ground into a swamp. Rats, lice, and disease were everywhere. Every night could be the last. Every attack was a slaughter. Hitler endured it all, convinced he had a special destiny. During the Battle of the Somme, one of the bloodiest in history, Hitler was wounded in the leg. As he lay in the mud, watching his comrades die, something inside him began to change. He started seeing enemies not only at the front, but also at home. In his letters to family members, Hitler spoke of internal traitors, of a moral decay, weakening Germany. The ideas of guilt and conspiracy began to grow in his mind, watered by the pain and despair of the battlefield. As the German Empire collapsed, Hitler and many other soldiers felt they had been betrayed. Conspiracy theories arose, talking about internal enemies who had stabbed Germany in the back. Hitler embraced these ideas fervently. The end of the war was devastating for Hitler. In October 1918, he was attacked with mustard gas and was temporarily blinded. Hospitalized in Pasewalk, he received the news of the surrender. For him, it was not just a military defeat. In that hospital, while other soldiers wept or prayed, Hitler made a decision. Germany had to be redeemed at any cost. The war had destroyed his old life, but it had also given him a new mission: to restore German greatness. Returning to Munich, he found a ruined city. Inflation had destroyed the value of money. The streets were filled with mutilated veterans, communist revolutionaries, and extremists of all kinds. Hitler was just one more in this tide of desperate people. Without family, without work, and without a future, Hitler lived in homeless shelters. His world was gray and bitter, but his mind, hardened by war, searched for an explanation for the disaster. And in his search, he found scapegoats. In 1919, the army hired him to spy on radical political groups. His mission was to infiltrate parties and report subversive activities. That's how he encountered the tiny German Workers' Party, an almost unknown group meeting in a beer hall. What he found there captivated him. They were nationalists, resentful, full of hatred toward communists, Jews, and traditional politicians. Hitler didn't just listen. He stood on a table and started speaking. His rage immediately connected with the audience. His talent as an orator was raw but impactful. He didn't need sophisticated speeches. His fury, his passion, and his ability to point out culprits were enough. Soon, Hitler stopped being a spy and became an active party member. In a short time, Hitler transformed the party. He renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the NSDAP. He designed the swastika logo, created a 25-point program, and established an ideology based on hatred and ultranationalism. World War I had destroyed an empire, but had also created something far more dangerous, an ideology of hate that found its fiercest face in Hitler. Every speech, every meeting echoed the rage he had felt in the military hospital. Many saw him as a madman, others as a savior, but no one could ignore him. The young man who once dreamed of being an artist now dreamed of a Reich that would last 1,000 years. And each step brought him closer to that dark dream. Hitler learned quickly. He saw that the masses needed hope, but also an enemy. He used anti-Semitism as a political weapon, blaming Jews for all of Germany's woes. It was a simple, brutal, and effective message. With the economy collapsing and unemployment soaring, people were looking for easy answers. Hitler offered them. In Bavaria's beer halls, his small figure rose like a prophet of resentment, promising to restore lost honor. In 1923, Hitler took his first major step toward power, the failed coup known as the beer hall putsch. He believed he could seize control by force. He failed spectacularly and was arrested. But in defeat, he found a new opportunity. During his time in prison, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf. In its pages, he poured out his worldview, a mix of extreme nationalism, racism, and conspiracy theories. For him, the war had been just the beginning. Mein Kampf was not just a book. It was his manifesto. He openly declared his desire to expand German territory eastward, to eliminate the Jews, and to establish an authoritarian state. It was a war plan disguised as ideology. Upon leaving prison, Hitler changed tactics. He realized that violence alone wasn't enough. He needed to conquer power legally. His skill in manipulating people's fear and despair would make him unstoppable in the coming years. The war had taught him that human life was expendable, that pain could shape the masses, and that hatred was more powerful than compassion. Hitler never left the trenches. He only changed the battlefield. Every speech was filled with military images, war metaphors, and the idea of constant struggle. Hitler saw himself as a soldier in an eternal war, not against foreign nations, but against internal and invisible enemies. World War I didn't just shape Hitler, it shaped an entire generation. A generation marked by death, hunger, and failure, looking for a leader willing to restore their lost glory, no matter the cost. Few could imagine that the lonely boy in the trenches, writing letters under a hail of bullets, would become one of the most feared dictators in history. But it all started there, in the mud, under fire, among the screams of a broken Europe. The origin of a dictator is not in the palace, but on the battlefield. Hitler found his purpose among corpses and ruins. And with him, he would drag millions toward an even greater tragedy. Hitler's story in World War I is not just the story of a man. It is the story of how pain, rage, and fear can shape the worst monsters, and how sometimes the real danger is born in the most unexpected places. When Adolf Hitler left the trenches, he didn't leave the war behind. He carried it with him, in his mind, in his heart, in his dreams of power and revenge. World War I didn't just change him, it created him. The young messenger who once ran under bullets thought he had survived death. But in reality, it was the war that planted within him the seeds of something much more destructive. And the world would take decades to understand it.